The Grand Galactic Council chamber hummed with nervous energy as Ambassador Zarlax Prime settled into his hovering seat. His 3 hearts beat an anxious rhythm against his copper-toned exoskeleton. The massive crystalline dome above showed the swirling colors of the Andromeda Galaxy, a reminder of just how vast their civilization had become. And yet, here they all were, gathered to discuss one single species that had managed to give them collective insomnia. Order. Order in the chamber. High Counselor Balaxis thundered, her tentacles rippling with authority. We gather today to address the growing situation with the humans. Zarlax couldn't help but notice how she practically choked on the word humans. He'd been their primary contact for the past 3 solar cycles, and even he had to admit they were peculiar. The humans have submitted their 47th formal complaint this quarter, announced Under Secretary Nix, her bioluminescent patches flashing with clear annoyance. They continue to insist we address the trade route violations in their outer colonies. A bout of dismissive laughter echoed through the chamber. Ambassador Krell of the Saurian Confederation leaned forward, his scales glinting under the artificial light. Oh please, they're just being dramatic as usual. What are they going to do? Kill us with kindness? More laughter. Zarlax felt his 3rd stomach churn uncomfortably. May I remind the council? He spoke up, his voice modulator carefully calibrated to project calm authority, that the humans have maintained remarkable restraint despite 17 unauthorized mining operations in their territory, 3 trade blockades, and that unfortunate incident with their medical transport. Restraint, scoffed Ambassador Vina of the Silicon Collective, her crystalline form vibrating with amusement. They send strongly worded messages and request meetings. The most aggressive action they've taken was refusing to share their coffee exports for a month. They're harmless. Zarlax watched as heads nodded in agreement around the chamber. None of them seemed to remember or care that humans had managed to achieve faster than light travel, using nothing but mathematics and sheer determination. Or that they'd cured 3 supposedly incurable plagues just because someone said it was impossible. Perhaps, Zarlax ventured carefully, we should consider that their patience is not infinite. Ambassador Zarlax High Counselor Balaxis cut in, her voice dripping with condescension. Your prolonged exposure to humans has clearly made you paranoid. They are a young species who barely understand their place in the galactic community. What could they possibly do? As if on cue, the massive screens around the chamber flickered to life. A human face appeared. Ambassador Sarah Wong, their chief diplomatic representative. Her expression was different today. The usual warm smile was gone, replaced by something Zarlax had never seen on a human before. Honorable Council, she began, her voice carrying none of its usual cheerfulness. We regret to inform you that the United Earth government is hereby withdrawing from all current diplomatic arrangements, effective immediately. The chamber erupted in chaos. Zarlax noticed something else too. Every single human observer had silently left their seats. This is outrageous, Balaxis shouted. You can't simply. We can. Ambassador Wong interrupted, something humans never did in council. And we have. For years we've tried to be nice. We've been patient, diplomatic, understanding. We've written letters, filed complaints, requested meetings. But it seems the galaxy has mistaken kindness for weakness. She paused, and Zarlax felt his exoskeleton grow cold at her next words. You should have listened when we were still asking nicely. The transmission cut off, leaving the chamber in stunned silence. Zarlax looked around at his fellow ambassadors, their faces showing varying degrees of confusion and dismissal. Only he seemed to understand what that cold look in the human's eyes meant. The nice ones had finally run out of nice. Zarlax Prime found himself scrolling through his personal archives as the council chamber descended into pandemonium. 10 solar cycles. That's how long he'd been studying humans, and somehow he was the only one who saw this coming. He pulled up the footage from first contact. The massive human vessel, crude by galactic standards but somehow impossibly efficient, had approached the council's border station with their typical peculiar mix of caution and enthusiasm. Their first words still echoed in his memory banks. Hello. We come in peace and bring cookies. No one had known what cookies were then. Now they were the most valuable commodity in 3 sectors. Those early days had been promising. The humans shared their technology freely, asking only for cultural exchange in return. When the Meridian Consortium had reverse-engineered their fusion drives without permission, the humans had simply shrugged and offered to help them improve the design. Your species are really bad at copying things safely, their chief engineer had said with a laugh. Let us help before you accidentally blow up a moon. Zarlax's second heart clenched as he remembered how that generosity had been repaid. The consortium had promptly sold the improved designs to the highest bidders, violating every patent agreement in council space. The humans had filed a complaint, been ignored, and responded by publishing their latest fusion research publicly to ensure everyone had access to safe designs. Next came the Tellurian incident. A Drachnid mining fleet had accidentally strayed into human territory, strip mining 3 uninhabited planets before anyone noticed. The humans had caught them red-handed, and their response. They offered to teach the Drachnids more efficient mining techniques that would yield better results with less environmental impact. The council had laughed behind closed doors at their naivety. The humans must have known that the Drachnids immediately used these techniques to strip mine twice as many worlds in half the time. Computer, display trade agreement violations, human space. Last 5 cycles, Zarlax commanded. The holographic display made his cooling system stutter. The numbers were staggering. 57 major violations, 143 minor infractions, 32 cases of outright piracy disguised as navigation errors. Through it all, the humans kept smiling, kept helping, kept sending their diplomats with their plates of cookies and their endless patience. When the Quantum Collective had stolen their quantum communication blueprints, the humans had pointed out a fatal flaw in the design that would have caused a cascade failure across multiple dimensions. When the Silicon Concordat had undercut their medical supply routes, the humans had responded by developing better logistics systems and sharing them with everyone. Ambassador Wong's words rang in his processors. You should have listened when we were still asking nicely. Zarlax pulled up his private notes from his first meeting with Admiral James O'Connor of the Human Defense Fleet. The Admiral had said something that had puzzled him for years. You know why humanity survived all its wars, Ambassador? Because we learned that the most dangerous person in any room isn't the one throwing punches. It's the nice one who's taken all the punches and is still smiling. At the time, Zarlax had filed it away as another quirky human metaphor. Now, watching the council bicker about appropriate responses to the human withdrawal, he understood. Every time the humans had been wronged, they hadn't just taken it lying down, they'd been learning, adapting, preparing. The medical transport incident should have been the final warning. When pirates had attacked a human hospital ship, the council had dismissed it as unfortunate but outside our jurisdiction. The humans had nodded, smiled their tight little smiles, and announced they would be upgrading their medical fleet's defensive capabilities. No one had bothered to ask what those upgrades entailed. Zarlax's attention snapped back to the present as High Counselor Balaxis announced she was dispatching a fleet to contain the human situation. He watched her tentacles wave dismissively as she assured the council that humans would quickly come to their senses when faced with a show of force. His communication unit pinged. A message from his human cultural attach, Rebecca Turner. Just 3 words. You might duck. Zarlax felt all 3 of his hearts stop. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never known a human to be that concise. The nice ones weren't being nice anymore, and the galaxy was about to learn why that should terrify them. The New Eden colony attack happened on what humans called a Sunday. Zarlax remembered that detail specifically because Ambassador Rebecca Turner had been telling him about Sunday brunches when the alert came through. The memory was seared into his neural pathways, her smile freezing mid-sentence, the color draining from her face as she read the message on her communicator. Excuse me, she had said politely, the human way. We have a situation. The situation, as it turned out, was that the Drachnid Mining Corporation had decided New Eden's third moon was simply too tempting to resist. Their mining fleet had arrived without warning, bringing with them their newest extraction devices suspiciously similar to banned human military tech. The colony's distress calls went out immediately, standard procedure. By the book, nice and proper. The Drachnids responded by jamming their communications. What happened next should have been the warning bell that made the entire galaxy pay attention. The humans didn't react with their usual diplomatic overtures. Instead, they went completely silent for exactly 6 hours. When communications resumed, the Drachnid fleet was gone. Not destroyed, just gone. The humans filed their complaint with the council, stating simply that they had escorted the unauthorized vessels from their territory. No explanation of how. No mention of where the fleet had gone. The Drachnids themselves refused to discuss it. Their mining corporation filed for bankruptcy the next day. But the Council, in their infinite wisdom, had simply marked the complaint as resolved and moved on. After all, there had been no violence, no destruction, no reason to investigate further. That's when the medical ships started getting hit. First was the HMHS Mercy, carrying vaccines to the Outer Rim colonies. Pirates struck what they thought was an easy target, a large, minimally armed vessel full of valuable medical supplies. The Mercy disappeared from all tracking systems for 20 minutes. When it reappeared, it was perfectly intact. The pirate fleet was found 3 days later, drifting in space, their ships completely intact but powered down. Their crews were unharmed but thoroughly traumatized. None would speak about what had happened. The Council dismissed it as space hysteria. Then came the HMHS Grace, the HMHS Nightingale, and the HMHS Hope. Each time the same pattern: attack, disappearance, reappearance, intact ships, traumatized attackers, polite incident reports filed with the Council. Zarlax had tried to warn them. The humans are showing us something he had argued in closed session. They're demonstrating capabilities we never knew they had. Nonsense, High Counselor Balaxis had replied. They're just getting lucky. Besides, they're handling these incidents without violence. That's what humans do. The final straw came during what should have been a routine council session. Ambassador Wong had been making her usual presentation about trade route violations when Ambassador Krell interrupted her. Perhaps he had drawled, his scales glittering with smug satisfaction. If humans spent less time complaining and more time developing proper defensive capabilities, these incidents wouldn't occur. The council chamber had gone deadly quiet. Ambassador Wong's smile hadn't wavered, but something had changed in her eyes. She had calmly closed her presentation materials and walked to the center of the chamber. "Let me tell you a story," she had said, her voice carrying to every corner of the vast room. "On Earth, we have these creatures called honeybees. They're small, social insects that make honey. They're generally peaceful. They'll warn you if you get too close to their hive, first by buzzing louder, then by flying close to you. They'll bump against you repeatedly before they even consider stinging." She had paused, making eye contact with each council member. But here's the interesting part. When a honeybee stings, it dies. It's the ultimate sacrifice. And yet, if you threaten their hive, they'll do it without hesitation. Because sometimes the message is more important than the messenger. The room had remained silent as she returned to her seat. None of them understood the significance of her words. None except Zarlax. He had immediately filed an urgent report recommending a complete review of human military capabilities. It was denied. He had requested an emergency session to discuss the growing pattern of human responses to provocations. Denied. He had even tried to arrange a private meeting between High Counselor Balaxis and the Human Military Command. Denied. The Council remained convinced that humans were simply incapable of being anything other than helpful, peaceful, and most importantly, harmless. They ignored the fact that human representatives had started declining social invitations. They dismissed reports of human merchant ships quietly changing their routes. They overlooked the sudden increase in human purchases of raw materials used in ship construction. They paid no attention when human colonies began upgrading their weather monitoring stations. Even when human diplomatic messages began getting shorter, more concise, less filled with their usual friendly small talk, nobody worried. After all, humans were the nice ones, the peaceful ones. The ones who brought cookies to first contact and offered technical support to pirates who tried to rob them. Zarlax had submitted his final warning just 3 days ago. In it, he had quoted an old human phrase he'd once heard: "There are 3 things all wise men fear: the sea in storm, a night with no moon, and the anger of a gentleman." The report had been filed under low-priority cultural observations. Now, watching the council scramble to understand the humans' withdrawal, Zarlax pulled up the last image captured by their long-range scanners before the human sectors went dark. It showed their colonies simultaneously activating what they had always claimed were atmospheric regulation shields. The humans had spent years being nice, years being helpful, Years teaching everyone their technology, sharing their advancements, showing their capabilities in small, careful demonstrations. Years being underestimated. Zarlax looked at his console as it registered massive energy signatures emerging from human space. The nice ones had finally stopped being nice. And the galaxy wasn't ready. Looking back, the signs had been everywhere. Zarlax reviewed his personal logs as the council chamber's emergency lights pulsed an ominous shade of purple. The changes in human behavior had started exactly 2 months ago. First, the human merchants stopped haggling. Any species that had done business with humans knew they loved to negotiate. They would spend hours discussing prices, throwing in little extras, offering discounts for bulk purchases, and generally turning every transaction into a social event. Then suddenly they started accepting first offers without discussion. Simple transactions, money exchanged, goods delivered, no small talk. Next came the abrupt end of their famous hospitality programs. Due to scheduled maintenance, they said, closing their cultural exchange centers one by one. The libraries followed. The art galleries, the culinary institutes. Every human institution that had freely shared their culture with the galaxy began shutting its doors. The council received 27 complaints about the closures. Filed and under review was the official response. Then the human military vessels changed their patrol patterns. The shift was subtle, so subtle that only someone like Zarlax, who had studied humans extensively, would notice. Their ships stopped taking the scenic routes. No more casual detours to assist stranded vessels. No more friendly visits to allied stations. They moved with purpose now, their trajectories precise and methodical. They're conducting routine exercises the council's military advisor had assured everyone, nothing to worry about. But Zarlax had worried, especially when the humans started recalling their civilian ships. Not all at once, that would have been too obvious. Just a steady stream of vessels quietly making their way back to human space. Always with perfectly reasonable explanations. Scheduled maintenance, crew rotation, system upgrades. The shipping manifests told their own story. Human vessels had been systematically emptying their off-world storage facilities. Essential materials, manufacturing equipment, medical supplies all gradually relocated to human territory. Even their communication patterns had shifted. Human diplomats, normally chatty and prone to long-winded explanations, began sending messages that were brief and to the point. Their famous diplomatic courier service, which had once delivered handwritten notes and gifts along with official documents, switched to purely digital transmission. The final warning came from the human entertainment sector. Their popular vid streams, watched by trillions across the galaxy, stopped producing new content. The official announcement cited technical upgrades. But Zarlax noticed they had only renewed broadcasting rights for their older shows, nothing new, nothing current. But the most telling sign had been the cookies. Every human diplomatic office in council space had always maintained a constant supply of freshly baked cookies. It was one of their odd but endearing customs. No meeting was complete without a plate of baked goods and their bitter brown stimulant beverage. 2 weeks ago, the cookies had stopped. Supply chain issues, the human diplomats had said with those tight smiles that never quite reached their eyes. Zarlax had immediately filed another report. The humans had never, not once in 10 cycles, run out of cookies. Even during the Great Sugar Embargo of 2274, they had found ways to keep their diplomatic cookie jars full. The report was marked trivial and archived. Now, watching the council's tactical display light up with thousands of human ships moving in perfect formation, Zarlax realized that every sign had pointed to this moment. The humans hadn't just been withdrawing, they had been preparing. Every closed facility, every recalled ship, every abbreviated message had been part of a carefully orchestrated plan. His console beeped. One last message from Rebecca, marked personal. Remember that time you asked me why humans smile when we're angry? You're about to find out. Thanks for trying to warn them. Zarlax looked up at the council members frantically issuing orders and making demands. None of them had noticed that the humans hadn't just been showing warning signs, they had been showing mercy. Every closure, every withdrawal, every change in pattern had been a chance for the council to wake up and pay attention. The humans had given the galaxy every opportunity to notice what was coming. They had practically written it in the stars. But the council had been too busy laughing at the nice ones to notice they weren't smiling anymore. The first sign that something was terribly wrong came when every artificial gravity system in the council chamber suddenly increased by exactly 1.3%. A tiny change barely noticeable to most species. But Zarlax knew what it meant. Someone had gained control of the station's primary systems. The humans hadn't even bothered hacking them. They had simply entered their original maintenance codes, the ones they had freely shared years ago when they helped build the station. Security breach in progress, announced the station's AI, its voice carrying an unusual note of confusion. Unknown correction, security breach resolved. All systems functioning normally. Have a pleasant day. Counselor Balaxis's tentacles writhed in agitation. What do you mean, resolved? Override security protocol. Thank you for your inquiry, the AI responded pleasantly. This station is now operating under Human Emergency Protocol 7. Would you like a cookie? That's when the reports started flooding in. Every human colony had simultaneously activated their supposed atmospheric regulation shields. But they weren't shields at all, they were quantum phase barriers, technology that the rest of the galaxy had deemed theoretically impossible. The barriers didn't just defend the colonies, they made them vanish from normal space entirely. At exactly the same moment, every human ship in galaxy, military and civilian alike, engaged what they had always called their navigation safety systems. Turns out those humble safety features were actually dimension-shifting drives. Thousands of vessels simply winked out of existence, reappearing in completely different sectors. Fleet report, Balaxis demanded, her voice rising in pitch. Where are they? What are they doing? The tactical officer, a meridian with 12 eye stalks, all focused on different displays, made a sound like breaking glass. They're everywhere, High Counselor, and nowhere. Our sensors can't track them. They keep appearing and disappearing. Impossible. Ambassador Krell slammed his scaled fist on his console. No species has mastered quantum phasing. The energy requirements alone. Oh, that's right, a familiar voice cut in. Every screen in the chamber lit up with Ambassador Wong's face. She wasn't smiling anymore. You all thought our fusion drives were inefficient because they produced excess energy. We weren't wasting power. We were storing it. For years. In quantum batteries that you thought were just backup power cells. The council chamber erupted in chaos as reports continued pouring in. The human medical ships, those supposedly defenseless targets that pirates had so loved to attack, dropped their holographic camouflage to reveal vessels bristling with weapons more advanced than anything in known space. They had been hiding in plain sight, gathering intelligence while pretending to be easy prey. Every human weather monitoring station transformed into a fully operational defensive platform. The Drachnid Mining Corporation's headquarters received a particularly interesting surprise when they discovered that the automated maintenance drones they had purchased from human merchants were actually military-grade combat units. This is outrageous, Balaxis thundered. This is an act of war. No, Ambassador Wong replied calmly. This is a statement of facts. Let me be clear about what's happening right now. She held up one finger. First, we have established quantum phase barriers around all our territories. Any unauthorized vessel attempting to enter our space will find themselves experiencing some rather interesting temporal effects. Nothing fatal, just educational. A second finger. We have activated our actual defense grid. Those technology sharing programs you all took such advantage of? We kept the best parts to ourselves. Every ship, station, and colony in human space is now operating at full military capacity. A third finger. Our merchant fleet, which you all dismissed as primitive and inefficient, has just revealed its true nature. Those cargo holds you kept trying to raid? Their weapon bays? Those outdated sensors? Quantum scanning arrays? Those clunky engines? Multidimensional drive systems? A fourth finger. Every piece of human technology in foreign space has just received a special update. That means every fusion reactor, every medical scanner, every food replicator you reverse-engineered from our designs now belongs to us. They'll still work, we're not monsters. But they'll work according to our rules now. The final finger. And just to be clear, those defense upgrades we made to our medical ships after the pirate attacks? We installed the same systems in every human vessel in the galaxy. That's why those pirates never talked about what happened to them. They literally couldn't comprehend what they saw. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Zarlax noticed his fellow ambassadors making various gestures of religious significance or distress. But the most important thing to understand, Wong continued, her voice taking on an almost gentle tone, is that this isn't an attack. This isn't even a threat. This is simply humanity showing you what we've been capable of all along. She leaned forward, and Zarlax saw in her eyes the same look he'd seen in every human's eyes over the past few weeks. It wasn't anger. It wasn't even disappointment. It was the look of someone who had finally stopped pretending. We tried being nice. We shared our technology, helped your people, improved your lives. When you stole from us, we gave you more. When you attacked us, we taught you better ways. When you ignored our warnings, we waited patiently. The screens showed footage of human ships appearing and disappearing across the galaxy, their movements coordinated with impossible precision. But you mistook kindness for weakness, patience for foolishness, generosity for naivety. So now we're going to try something new. The station's lights flickered, and when they stabilized, every council member found their console displaying a new set of trade agreements, defense treaties, and territorial boundaries. These are our terms, Wong stated. They're very reasonable. In fact, they're exactly the same terms we proposed 5 years ago, the ones you all laughed at. You have 1 hour to review them. This time, we won't be taking questions. The screens went dark, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. After a long moment, Ambassador Krell spoke up, his scales pale with shock. They could have conquered us at any time. No, Zarlax replied, finally understanding what he had observed over all these years. They didn't want to conquer anyone. They wanted to be friends. We just never let them. High Counselor Balaxis stared at the new agreements, her tentacles completely still for the first time in Zarlax's memory. What do we do now? Zarlax looked at his console, where one final message from Rebecca blinked. Time to learn the difference between being nice and being kind. Now, he said, we learned how to be better neighbors. Because the nice ones aren't pretending anymore, and we really don't want to find out what else they've been hiding. One standard galactic month after what became known as the patient snap, Zarlax found himself back in the council chamber. The room had changed. The ornate decorations were gone, replaced by simple, functional designs, human designs. The empty cookie plates remained on the tables, a reminder. The trade reports for this cycle are ready for review, announced the new council administrator, a Meridian who had actually bothered to study human history. Surprisingly, they show a 15% increase in overall galactic commerce. Zarlax wasn't surprised. The humans had resumed trading almost immediately after the agreements were signed. They were still sharing technology, still offering help, still being nice. But now everyone understood the steel behind the smiles. The Drachnid Mining Corporation had learned that lesson particularly well. After discovering that their entire fleet of reverse-engineered ships now required human authorization codes to operate, they had swallowed their pride and submitted a formal request for a technology-sharing partnership. The humans agreed immediately, offered favorable terms, and even threw in free engineer training. The pirates learned too. The stories spread quickly, tales of ships that vanished into impossible space, of weapons that didn't destroy but rather corrected aggressive behavior, of defense systems that seemed to operate on the principle of proportional embarrassment. Attacks on human vessels dropped to zero. We have a report from the Human Cultural Exchange Office, the administrator continued. They're reopening their facilities next week. They've invited representatives from all species to attend their traditional welcome-back party. They specifically mentioned there will be cookies. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The humans had kept their word about everything. The new agreements were fair, the technology sharing programs were even more generous than before, and human ships still responded to any distress call within range. But there was a new understanding now. The galaxy had seen what happened when the nice ones stopped being nice, and no one wanted to see it again. The Human Defense Fleet has also submitted their new patrol schedules, the administrator added. They've offered to coordinate with our own security forces to improve coverage of trading routes. More shifting in seats. Everyone remembered how those outdated human ships had simply appeared and disappeared at will, dancing between dimensions like it was a casual afternoon activity. Finally, the administrator concluded, we have a personal message from Ambassador Wong to the council. The screens lit up, showing the human diplomat. She was smiling again, the real smile this time. "Honored council members," she began, "as we move forward together, we wanted to share something with you. An old human saying, be nice, but never be taken for granted." She paused, letting the words sink in. "We believe in second chances. We believe in peace, cooperation, and the power of shared knowledge. We still want to be friends. Real friends, the kind who respect each other's boundaries and capabilities." Another pause. "We're hosting a galaxy-wide cultural festival next month. There will be music, art, food from every species, and yes, plenty of cookies. We hope you'll all attend. After all, that's what friends do." The message ended, leaving the chamber in thoughtful silence. "They're still the same humans," Zarlax observed to no one in particular. "They didn't change at all. We just finally saw them clearly." He checked his personal messages. Rebecca had resumed their weekly conversations. Her latest note was typical human, warm, friendly, and carrying just the slightest hint of steel. "Business is good, the weather is great, and everyone's playing nice. Let's keep it that way." The galaxy had learned its lesson. The humans weren't just the nice ones, they were the nice ones who could shift planets between dimensions, turn pirates into cautionary tales, and control every piece of technology they had ever shared, all while maintaining a perfectly pleasant demeanor. As Zarlax looked around the chamber at his fellow representatives, he saw the same realization in all their eyes. The humans hadn't needed to become aggressive to show their strength. They had simply stopped hiding it behind their smiles. And somehow, that was far more impressive than any show of force could have been. The new galactic order was established not with wars or threats, but with cookies and quantum physics. The humans were still bringing treats to meetings, still helping with technological problems, still responding to distress calls. But now, when they smiled and offered assistance, the galaxy smiled back respectfully. Because everyone had finally learned what Zarlax had known all along: the most dangerous force in the universe wasn't the species with the biggest guns or the most advanced technology. It was the nice ones who had been playing a longer game all along. End log entry: Ambassador Zarlax Prime. Galactic date 2275.301. Personal addendum note to self: never run out of cookies.